Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I hope you all have been having a really great time at the conference. The team at the AFPC have really done an amazing job of putting it all together. My name is Katie Ashbaugh. I'm the program manager for BuyAlaska. And today I'm going to be giving you just a brief overview of BuyAlaska, which is a program under the Alaska Small Business Development Center. And I'm going to be walking you through one of the tools that we actually created in partnership with the Alaska Food Policy Council in order to connect consumers to Alaska food businesses. So just with a little bit of background to start, BuyAlaska exists because there's a need to support as many small businesses as possible and encourage the growth of local economies in Alaska. I think most of you already realize this, but Alaska's small businesses really are the backbones of our communities. Not only do they bring us together and they define what our local cultures are, but the success of small businesses is really vital for the creation of new markets in Alaska and for our resiliency, especially as a remote state. So last year, the UA Center for Economic Development did a study for us on the impact of a shift in spending from non-locally owned businesses to locally owned businesses, and this is Alaska specific. So the state's supply chain, business revenue distribution, and the economic impact of local jobs and wages were all things that were considered in this study. And their findings were that in Alaska with non-local businesses, we're seeing an estimated about 22% of business revenues staying in the state. And compare that to spending money at a locally owned business, we're seeing 63% of business revenues actually staying and circulating within Alaska. So to put that in other words, a dollar spent at a local business has almost 3 times the impact on our economy than a dollar spent at a non-local business. And this is because Alaskan business owners tend to work with each other to utilize local supply chains. They utilize other local businesses as service providers, and they also collaborate on new and innovative opportunities. So the money that is spent in our local economy, it actually stays and recirculates and it grows. And this is something that's commonly known as the local multiplier effect. So the BuyAlaska program goal is to encourage consumers to shop from Alaskan-owned businesses first in order to keep that money in Alaska, keep it strengthening our economy, our communities, and heightening our food security. So we really want people to change their habits to simply think local first before turning to national retailers. We really want to try and make it easy for consumers to shop small and to discover what's available within our great state right now. So our mission is to amplify Alaska businesses through connection, awareness, and access to resources. So BuyAlaska is a hub for consumers to connect to Alaskan-owned businesses, but it's also one for Alaska businesses to connect with one another. We want to bring awareness to what's available in Alaska, and we want to bring awareness about why it's so important that you look locally first before you turn to those national retailers for the stuff that you need. So we also aim to give businesses the resources that they need to amplify their business and get that extra visibility, and give consumers the resources that they need to shop local first. So ultimately, by supporting small businesses, it's our vision to build economic resilience for Alaska as we emerge stronger together. The health and the well-being of our communities, our economic resilience, and improved food security for Alaska are all things that benefit as a result of lifting up small businesses and growing our local economies. And in our actions, we value community, collaboration, and prosperity. And we really see this as a system that is what works best together and ultimately embodies what we represent as our program, which is Alaskans working together to create a prosperous state. So I wanted to talk about one of our most notable initiatives that we've been working on to achieve our goal, and that has been the launch of our Alaskan-owned business directory. And I really hope that some of you guys have already seen this, checked it out on our website. Since the launch of our directory just early last year, about 775 Alaska businesses have come to the site to join the directory. And the ability to catalog what Alaska's small businesses, farms, and food suppliers have available in Alaska is helping to open up new opportunities for Alaska businesses to sell to consumers statewide and beyond. So, with more demand comes more growth. With more growth comes more innovation, more collaboration, and ultimately that prosperity for our state that we're aiming for. So when businesses sign up, they create their unique business listing page, and that's what you see on the right-hand side there. That's just a snapshot of the roaming route seller listing. So they create their own unique business listing page. It has all of their business information, their branding, their contact information that customers need to get in touch with them. They also get a unique URL, and this can be really helpful for businesses that don't maintain a website, giving them that extra web presence and searchability on the web. So when someone comes to create their business listing, they're actually given ownership of the listing. And so they have the ability to make changes to the listing at any time, as things change, or if they want to just update photos, things like that. So it's really giving the business owners the ownership to keep things fresh and just keep things in a way that, driving as many customers to them as possible. So these business listing pages are also searchable by keywords. They're searchable by their location and region, different categories, if they sell made in Alaska or Alaska grown products, and also if the business is shipped. So, we're really trying to eliminate the need for Amazon because you can look here first and have it sent right to your doorstep. So the directory has also really opened up the ability to categorize and better visualize what we have available in Alaska. And really recently, BuyAlaska partnered with the Alaska Food Policy Council and the Alaska Manufacturing Extension Partnership to bring more visibility to food and beverage producers and suppliers in Alaska. So this is just a snapshot of the Small Business Feeds Alaska page, and it breaks down what food and beverage products are made in Alaska by category, and it makes it really easy to find local farmers markets, food hubs, and other food distributors. So again, in our hopes of bringing more visibility to these businesses, it's not just for consumers to connect with businesses, but it's also for businesses to connect with each other and to use each other as suppliers, service providers, and retailers. So we want to see every single Alaskan-owned businesses, and especially the food businesses and farms, listed on the directory and ultimately pulled onto this page. So we're working with every business that we can to do that. And yeah, like I mentioned, this is just a snapshot. You can check it out for yourself in full. And the web address is just down there below, buyalaska.com/feed-Alaska. So you can really help us grow Alaska's economy and food security by becoming a part of our network. If you're an Alaskan-owned business, I highly recommend taking 5 minutes to visit our website and list your business on the directory today, and encourage other Alaska businesses to do the same. Like I mentioned, we're really going to be better together with this. You can also start by using the directory yourself to connect with other businesses, or work with or to find other suppliers and service providers if you're a business across the state. And finally, encourage your community to use BuyAlaska as a resource. We're a new program, we're growing, and there's always opportunities for that. Other things is we would love for you to be involved with furthering our mission to lift up Alaska businesses and to help us build resiliency in Alaska. We love collaboration, so we are always wanting to work with the people that are on the ground and just extend our reach as much as possible. So please reach out to us with any ideas. We also want to share out all of the amazing things that are going on all across Alaska, and we really need input from everybody across the state in order to do that. So if you let us know about the events, the resources that are available in your communities, and some of the other opportunities that are out there, let us know about those, and then we'll help share those out and amplify those messages as well. Social media is also obviously a really powerful tool. And in order to expand our reach and amplify the presence of Alaska businesses, we would love for you to like, follow, and engage with us so we can just really expand our reach as much as possible. And finally, keep an eye on what we're up to by signing up with our monthly newsletter through our website. We'll keep you up to date with everything that's going on with the program. We've always got new stuff in the works, and connecting you with all the local goodness across Alaska. So thank you so much for your time and for your interest. As I mentioned, I'm always happy to talk about collaboration ideas. I'm always happy to talk about how businesses can take advantage of our offerings, and with any other questions as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Matt. And I would like to check in to see. I'm not sure I'm recognizing whether our next speaker is here. Pete Pearson, are you on? Kelly Valentine, Pete, if you're not on, we're going to go ahead and switch to Kelly. And Kelly, if you'd like to put your video on, spotlight you, and how do you go next? Well, Sarah, you said you want to go early? I think I can let you go if you'd like to. I appreciate it.
I can do that.
Oh, you are so game. All right, I'm going to find you.
Just a sec. All right, I'm going to keep my video off at first just because I have pretty low bandwidth. Can you hear me, Lorinda?
You sound good, Sarah.
Awesome. So my name is Sarah Lewis. I'm a professor of extension for the Southeast Alaska districts, as you can see written there. I'm doing a quick presentation on a project that I started a couple of years ago. And did our first cruise last year. It's called the Maritime Extension Project. The you see there is the ship. It's the main event, Maritime Extension Project. That is the Pacific Sapphire, which is my family's Katie Krogan 42 that cruises around Southeast Alaska. Let me advance. There we go. So working with cooperative extension, a lot of you are, I hope, and I'm sure, pretty familiar with cooperative extension throughout Alaska, but we we do varied programs and projects throughout Alaska, but the overarching goals are to link Alaska's diverse people. We also interpret and extend knowledge in all kinds of areas. Folks are often familiar with Master Gardeners and 4-H and the food preservation classes. We do all of those, but education and skill building is across everything, among the main thing that we do as extension agents within our districts. So I am located in Juneau. We have another cooperative extension agent for Southeast, Darren Snyder, whose program areas are agriculture, horticulture, and 4-H. And my program areas are family and community development, which crosses all kinds of different topics. So for example, things that I teach throughout Southeast Alaska: canning, pressure canning and water bath canning, lots of emergency preparedness, whether that is community emergency preparedness in terms of being ready for natural emergencies, but also just family emergencies, cottage foods, home energy, pickling and fermenting is always very popular, indoor air quality and other home-based aging in place, other home-based topics, home economics, and I do look at home finances and things like that, food entrepreneurship, folks who are interested in cottage foods or moving beyond cottage foods, food safety and produce safety, wild edibles, and chronic disease prevention. Those are all areas that I do workshops and do publications and outreach in. As I mentioned, throughout the Southeast District of the UAF Cooperative Extension, which is located on Tlingit-Ani, most of the communities that I visit are located on Tlingit-Ani, with some, of course, as we get farther south, we get into the lands of the Haida and the Tsimshian. But I mean, in general, 35,000 square miles. So our district, our Southeast District, is about the size of Indiana. And it is not the largest district in Alaska, of course, but one of the most important features of Southeast Alaska that can be is both a challenge, and I've decided to turn it into a real benefit, is that we cannot get from Juneau, where our district office is, we cannot get from Juneau to any of our communities that we teach in and that we connect with the people in, except by boat or plane. And so that, of course, there's lots of challenges with that, not least of which is the cost. So the distance and the cost associated with traveling throughout Southeast has been very difficult as university budgets have been reduced. So the Maritime Extension Project is one of our responses to that. It's my response to that is figuring out how to get to my communities in a more than one time every 8 years, which is just not an acceptable connection with the communities. So being able to do that by boat is something that I decided to try. Started the project in 2020, but was not able to actually go on our first cruise because of COVID until 2021. We started in Juneau. It was a 5-week cruise. I taught in Cake, then went on over to Sitka, then to Angoon, Teneke, and then we shot up to the Haines Fair, and then ended by teaching in Skagway before heading home to Juneau. And that was a 5-week trip in July and August of 2021. In 2022, I have 2 trips planned. The early one is going to be starting in May, and I'll go from Juneau and head all the way down to Wrangell, then back up to Petersburg, and then over to Cake, which is super exciting because, as you can see, I'm getting to the same community 2 times in 2 years, which is something that I have not been able to do in the past. So I'm really excited to be able to keep those connections going. Then later on in the summer, in July and August, we will be heading over to Hoonah, then to Gustavus and Pelican, and then again up to the Haines Fair, then to Skagway, before we head home. Next year, already making plans for next year, heading farther south, going to Petersburg and Wrangell again, Yahoo, being able to actually visit a community again. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of time on Prince of Wales Island, and then head over to Ketchikan. And I'm hoping for my first visit to Metlakatla if I'm invited there. And then, of course, tootling on back up home to Juneau. So collaboration with other agencies is actually something that I have taken into consideration in this project. In fact, my family increased the size of our boat this last year. We bought a new one. We upgraded in size so that we could invite others to join us, other educators, other community members going between communities. Things like that, so that I can also on the boat to be bringing information from other programs along with me, to be connecting different collaborators to these same communities. And then the connection part, as I was talking about earlier, being able to consistently visit a community multiple times is something that is we haven't really been able to do very much unless the community itself has funds to bring us. And so this project is one that, because of the costs associated with it are being much lower, considering the number of communities I can visit, I can actually make connections better and more regularly and bring all kinds of community education to communities when I'm doing that. I'm going to stop sharing and I am going to turn now. So this is Pacific Sapphire. I've got about 30 seconds to show you. I will actually do some of my teaching from right here in the boat when that is allowed with COVID mitigation strategies, but I have also taught from the dock, and because there's room, I actually bring lots of tents with me and bikes. So when I get to a community, I'm basically the circus coming to town with 2 or 3 canners, water bath canners, pressure canners, dehydrators, my tents, my smoker, all kinds of equipment that I'm able to bring by boat that I wouldn't normally be able to bring if I was traveling by air, and the ferries don't necessarily work out schedule-wise. So decided to make my own transportation and visit the communities of Southeast. So that's the Maritime Extension Project, and thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing the other projects.
Sarah, that is an amazing telework that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us from your boat. That was just awesome, and we really appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to Kelly Valentine and with King Tech. Are you ready, Kelly?
All right, I'm ready now. You can hear me, hopefully.
Yes, we can hear you quite well.
All right. Well, thanks for your time. So I'm a new teacher over at King Tech High School in Anchorage. If anyone's not familiar with that school, it's a career and technical school. So that means people are studying vocational trades, electrician, construction, culinary, stuff like that. They also have a middle college there, so students can get college credit. And so we're in Anchorage. It's only juniors and seniors, so more or less the young adult age range. And I'm in the process of teaching and creating a new program called Farm and Food Industries of Alaska. It started in August, and I started teaching in August, so it's a pretty good time. What we're doing is we're exploring all the ways that Alaskans get food, harvested food, acquire food, the food system. There's a focus on traditional farming, hydroponic farming, hunting and fishing, wild harvesting of plants and berries, including medicinal plants, mariculture, livestock. And then we also look at life skills and values. So looking at kind of weather, how weather works, how to use weather forecasting to plan your food gathering and growing activities, orienteering and GPS, botany, composting, career exploration, tool usage, tree pruning and care, landscape and permaculture design, business planning, lighting systems, plant nutrients, soil, food preservation, and we include values, and it's like sustainability, stewardship, food sovereignty, things like that. So my background is actually in sustainable agriculture. I spent a few years farming in Colorado and New Zealand. I moved to Alaska about 5 years ago and was hydroponic farming at Seeds of Change, and was also helping run Evie's Brinery, making sauerkraut kimchi. They're doing a presentation in about an hour, so you guys should check that. I think they're making sauerkraut. You can't eat it, but it's worth a shot. I also spent about 4 years running homeless shelter kitchens and working in various other restaurants and whatnot. So I have a lot of experience in the food industry. And I also married into a family with deep Alaska roots that does a lot of subsistence hunting, fishing, and gathering. And they've taught me a lot about that. So this has been a great opportunity to share all of my experience and passion with the high schoolers of the Anchorage area. It makes my job really fun. The students seem to enjoy it. And one of the interesting things I have found, though, is that students signing up for this class, not one of them yet is pursuing a career in agriculture. They're not saying, teach me to be a farmer. They are interested in the food system. They're interested in plants, but like nobody's trying to be farmers. So what I'm trying to teach in this program is an understanding of the food system and how we get food and ways we can get better food or grow it more sustainably, help them to understand how to grow food in wherever they might be in life, how to feed themselves and their community well. And basic tool usage, how to use tape measures, saws, hammers, how to understand the weather. So kind of some stuff. Well, my goal is to give them life skills that when they leave this class, they're going to be better prepared to be an adult and get that job they want and just do life well. So there's a part of this is a call to action. So pay attention, everyone. This is my call to action. I'm a farmer from Colorado. I've been in Alaska for 5 years, and I think I'm doing pretty good up here, but I only have so much knowledge, especially of the Alaska food system. It's not possible to know that much in 5 years compared to someone who's spent a whole lifetime here. So everybody in this conference in the state, you have skills, you have knowledge of the food system. And I'm inviting each and every one of you guys to come and to work with my students, maybe do a guest speaker or presentation or teach us something we don't know. So don't be afraid. These high schoolers are pretty friendly. Anything they're kind of boring, they don't ask many questions except for one of them. So yeah, I encourage everyone to come. If you have any skills, reach out to me. I'm gonna put my email in the chat right now and would love to hear from y'all. Does anyone have any questions about the new program at King Tech or thoughts or anything?
So glad to hear that you have that you're doing this. It's really cool. Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thanks. And we just do have Kelly's got a couple more minutes if anybody has questions for him.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Do you have ability to have us do distance ed to your kids if we're out of Anchorage?
Yeah, we do. So thanks to COVID, everyone's used to doing things on Zoom. I got a really large TV in my classroom, for better or worse. And who am I talking to? I'm not seeing that.
Oh, sorry. My name's Darren Snyder. I'm with Cooperative Extension in Juneau.
Nice. I think we got some grow chambers from you at Seeds of Change, or at least one. So
Yes, yes.
yeah, I think I've emailed you something before, so I'd love to talk more. We can definitely do virtual. I'm trying to work on doing some mariculture into my system, so it's gonna be really tough to do oyster farming in Anchorage, as far as I can tell. But yeah, so I'm open to virtual learning. So
Okay.
well, I was stranded in Hawaii the first week of school in January, and so I taught class from a farm I was working on in Hawaii, and then I taught a class on how to eat a coconut from the beach. So we're
Nice.
making things work in the age of COVID.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks, Kelly. We'll follow up.
Darren, I look forward to connecting.
Great.
Any other questions, or should I pass it to the next lightning presenter?
I know that there are some people that joined just to hear you, Kelly. So have any questions for him? Go ahead. We have time for one more question.
Hey, Kelly, this is Emily Becker. I'll just tell you, I'm going to email you. I'm teaching at Airport Heights this spring, and I've got ideas for collaborating with our elementary students. So cool.
Amazing. One of my goals was to have my students help to install or run or design a school garden. So Airport Heights, you're my neighbor school. So let's make some plans. Thank you. Yep, my email should be in the chat, so feel free to reach out.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. We can move on to our next lightning round. Megan, you might have to pronounce your name, but I'll try. I'm going to say Machaki.
Mishoki.
Mishoki. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just getting my screen shared here. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Mishoki. I'm an assistant research professor at Penn State University, and I'm going to talk about a collaborative project that I'm part of as a researcher and a project manager alongside many of my colleagues listed here. The project is called the Polaris Project, which stands for Pursuing Opportunities for Long-Term Arctic Resilience for Infrastructure and Society. And it's funded by the National Science Foundation. It's a Navigating the New Arctic project, and many different universities involved and communities and organizations in Alaska. The communities that we are collaborating with are rural coastal communities in Alaska, and we've been invited to collaborate with Wainwright in the North Slope and Dillingham in the Bristol Bay region, and presented to their tribal council and received approval to collaborate together. And we're just going through that process now in Chivac. Things have been a little bit slow with COVID, and we hope to also work with folks in Chivac as well. The Polaris Project has three research pillars or objectives. The first one is looking at coastal hotspots of change and seeing really how coastal erosion is impacting communities and infrastructure. And it's led by Chris Mayo at University of Alaska Fairbanks. The second objective is to investigate the impact of environmental changes on food security and nutrition in rural coastal communities. And that's really the objective that I'll focus on today in this presentation. And the third one is focused on human migration and community relocation under the influence of climate change. So I wanted to mention some of the community benefits of our project. We're really focusing our research on local priorities, asking applied questions and having applied outcomes, and making sure that we're producing products that aren't just academic publications, but are also products of interest to the communities that we're collaborating with. We have an education component, which is working with local teachers, and we have education experts on our team as well to co-develop place-based materials and also work with teachers through National Science Foundation on research experience for teachers. And we have an aspect of developing internships for K through 12 students in our project to be involved in different research components. And we also have a filmmaker on our project, Ryan Peterson, who is working with the communities to tell different stories through film that they would like to highlight about community resilience and food systems, and also having many trainings on filmmaking with students in each community. So the food security and nutrition pillar is looking at the impact of environmental changes on wild and store-bought foods, including availability, accessibility, convenience, and preference. And we'll be collecting data through household surveys and key respondent interviews. And through this presentation, I wanted to give a kind of an update on what we're working on in terms of things in progress in this pillar. We don't actually have data to share yet, but hopefully next year, I'll come back and share some of our findings. So one of the things that we're working on is this comprehensive subsistence survey in collaboration with Alaska Department of Fish and Game and organizations within each community in the Bristol Bay area, the Bristol Bay Native Association, and in the North Slope Borough Wildlife Department. And the survey provides a baseline information about fish, wildlife, and vegetation resources that are being used by people in each community, as well as traditional knowledge connected to those resources. And this is, you might know about the survey. It's been done, I think, since the 70s throughout Alaska in different communities. And in the communities that we're working in, for example, Dillingham hasn't had one done since 2010. So it's going to be interesting to look at the changes in, food use, subsistence food use, and how climate has impacted some of those access and availability of some of those resources. And we've also integrated questions in about migration and grocery store foods as well. Along with the survey, there's ethnographic interviews to provide context about the things that people are experiencing with a few of the survey respondents. And so another thing that we're working on, Casey Hamilton and Erica Smithwick. Casey's a master's student at Penn State University, looking at the modeling of changing distributions of berries and how environmental factors are impacting berry distribution now and in the future. And Andy Baltzenberger is also doing a similar thing for terrestrial mammals, moose and caribou in the Bristol Bay region, looking at changing availability of those large protein sources for people under projected climate scenarios. And that's just an example of one of Casey's preliminary findings, something that he would share back to the community in terms of predicted berry distribution of the bog blueberry. And we're also working on a review paper of drivers' food system change in rural Alaska based on things that have already been done and reported in the literature, and things that we hope to build on in this project. And it's being led by Bronwyn Powell at Penn State and myself. So we're looking at contemporary accounts of drivers of change in food systems in Alaska and contributing factors that shape diet, food security, nutrition, and around our review of the literature and research that's already been done, developing a framework to facilitate the identification of important drivers of change, and test that framework in a few different case studies in our study areas, as well as identify junctures in the food system that are important to consider food system resilience and adaptation, and identify those junctures that kind of need more research, and which could be research questions that we are answering through this project. So the next steps, after we're done with the subsistence surveys in all 3 communities, we'll analyze the data, which will kind of serve as a baseline data for this project. And we'll present the findings to the communities and discuss next steps in terms of things that we find in that baseline data that communities would really like to dig into a little bit more. And then we hope to do a second round of surveys based on kind of a discussion around the baseline data and the objectives of this project. And then hopefully next year I'll come back and present our findings. Thank you.
I did see a question in the chat for you. Irene was wondering if you're interested in information about the Copper River Basin.
Sure. Yes. I'd love that, and I can talk to you over email, or I can put my email in the chat there.
Thank you so much, and we'll go ahead and move on to our next lightning round. We might be able to. I'm pretty good on time here. Are questions for Megan? Okay. And hey, Art, let me just check in with Ziona really quick and make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I apologize.
No worries. I had to move things around just a little bit, and I know Ziona.
You bet.
Are you good to go, Ziona?
Yeah, I can start sharing my screen.
Okay. Let me just.
Good deal. Sorry about that.
Are you good? Do you want to use your video?
Yeah. Let me just pull that up. Okay. Can everybody see the presentation screen?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone who invited me to be at the conference today, and for everyone who's joining us. I'm Ziona with Food for Thought Alaska, and I'm just here to share a little bit about our community fridge project and how food sharing can eliminate food waste and help us increase access to food resources. So Food for Thought Alaska is a mutual aid organization, a very grassroots project based here in Anchorage. Our mission is to feed Anchorage neighbors, reduce food waste, and increase the literacy around food justice and access here in Anchorage. Our projects are really intended to come alongside the existing food distribution systems that are already doing a lot of really great work and complement them while serving as a nexus and a connector for community and neighbors, since that's just what naturally happens when folks are getting together and taking care of each other. My hope is to go over hunger and some of the language that we'll use in this presentation. So these are some of the data from 2019. So I'm looking forward to seeing post-pandemic data, but as of 2019, we saw that 1 in 8 Alaskans were facing food insecurities. Of that 1 in 8, almost half were above the income threshold to qualify for nutrition assistance benefits. So like food stamps, SNAP. 43.6% of the folks in Alaska facing food insecurity actually do not qualify for those benefits. And when we talk about food security or food insecurities, as I'm sure the conference has probably covered a bit today, we're really talking about the systemic nature of how malnutrition arises and what we can do to prevent it and address those insecurities. Food justice is the opposite side of that spectrum. When people have access to the food that they need, nutritious food and food that meets their cultural preferences and needs, at all times, so that they're able to physically go access this, they're able to create a meal with these food items, and that's the goal. We want more Alaskans to be food secure and to feel like they have just access to the food that they need. When people are facing food insecurities, there's a bit of a cycle that happens here. You know, as we do, we're human, we cope with adversity, and a lot of times those coping mechanisms are unhealthy. They do lead to like other secondary issues like chronic disease. Chronic disease subsequently leads to decreased employability, increased healthcare expenses, increased childcare expenses, and then that leads to other instabilities like financial insecurities, having to decide between medication and food, and then that food insecurity cycle continues. Our hope is to combat food insecurity and food waste with some of these projects. So food waste is food that, for whatever reason, whether that's during production, during processing, distribution, retail, or after it's made at home with you, it goes uneaten. And that's true for about 21% of the food that each person buys, with the average American family spending about $1,500 a year on food that will not be eaten. And food banks do a really good job of rescuing food. A lot of the items that can be donated are required to be prepared in a commercial facility or be like produce. So that leaves the donations that we're hoping to capture, like home cooked meals, food that you would give to like friends and family, kind of still on the table. So we're hoping to combat food waste and food insecurity by talking more about food sharing. So food sharing is a mutual aid practice where an individual or a group or a community makes a commitment to ensure that abundant food is shared with neighbors that are in need instead of going wasted. Charities also help people that are in need. Like I said, we want to come alongside the food bank and those other food distributors, but food sharing practices are a little bit more autonomized and community centered. So they're empowering hungry neighbors with options while also providing those connections that can prevent food insecurity, or at least some of the aspects of the cycle of food insecurity. Some examples of food sharing might look like some of these things that you may have seen, like community fridges. This is a picture of a community fridge in Albany, New York, hosted by the Free Food Fridge Albany. They have definitely been very informative to our project and our processes, as we definitely want to learn from other people doing similar projects. Another place that we learned a lot from was the Free 99 Fridge based out of Atlanta, Georgia. This is a picture of a social supermarket. This is actually one of the first ones that they did, which is much smaller than what they're doing now. They actually have a pay what you can grocery store model that's fully launched. And so this is a really cool way that folks can share an abundance of food with neighbors who might otherwise have other barriers to accessing it. This is actually a picture of a local community garden here in Spenard. I believe this is actually hosted at either the NEiFPAA or the Lutheran Social Services Food Bank, but this is a community garden that was put together by Anchorage Community House and just neighbors. And, you know, it's taken care of by neighbors, it's autonomously run, and the food and produce gets shared between everybody. So these are some ways that, you know, food sharing is happening around our communities and around the nation. We're hoping to specifically focus on community fridges here in Anchorage. So we're using this mutual aid initiative to, again, minimize waste, share produce, share meals, and just create community through these free accessible refrigerators. This model is free of like any barriers or stigmas that might be traditionally associated with food pantries or food banks, and it's autonomously operated by the community. So it's not operated by a nonprofit agency or a charity. It's operated by the folks who live there and could be even shopping there. Right now, we have our first fridge site secured in Mountain View. We're hosted by the Umoja Co-working company. And they have a lovely space on Mountain View Drive that they have offered to us. And over the past 2 weeks, we've been able to put together a team of carpenter volunteers who built this really great insulated fridge frame that is a little bit different than some of the other community fridges that you may be familiar with. A lot of them are just kind of freestanding. They might have a roof, but this bad boy is insulated, it is weatherproof, and we're really excited to be able to share meals throughout the winter. Are the other neighborhoods that we're hoping to launch this project in are Muldoon, Fairview, Spenard, and Government Hill. The reason why we picked these communities is because they are near and dear to our heart, but they also have been identified by the USDA as target communities or opportunity communities, which means there's a lot of people who are facing barriers or different adversities in these communities that otherwise they might not get their needs met. So specifically when we were targeting Mountain View, we were acknowledging that at the beginning of the pandemic, they lost one of their major grocery stores, creating a bit of a food desert for that neighborhood. So we wanted to come up with community solutions to help balance that out. So right now, this has all been done through crowdfunding for projects. We've been, spreading the word to friends and family and neighbors, and through just, cash apps and donations, and then collaborating with other local artists to do like a pay what you can sort of raffle. We were able to raise just under $3,000 to get the fridge frame built and get some of the other items that we need. To duplicate this project in other communities, we do need more money. It takes money to make money. So we are trying to make access to those other communities, hopefully over the next year. And to do so, we would like to be able to apply for grants. Because we are a mutual aid organization and we've specifically structured ourselves to have most of our focus in those community relationships, we are not a 501c3 nonprofit. So we are hoping to partner with somebody to increase our access to those grant opportunities and also be able to increase our outreach to donors who might be more interested in charitable contribution benefits. So if anyone has questions about our project, what we're doing, who are those silly guys at Food for Thought Alaska? What are they up to? We're just trying to feed folks, and we want to invite you to do the same. So this is our website. Please feel free to check us out. We have a calendar with upcoming events that are going on. And we also have a Facebook page that's linked on the website, which is the platform that we're organizing our volunteers in. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But that is what I have for today.
And I did see Cindy Carnes, you had a question, it sounds like. Welcome to go ahead and take yourself off mute.
I couldn't find the mute button. Yeah, so my big concern is having people steal the food. How does that work?
Yeah, so a fridge that is autonomously operated, food is donated, it's there for people to take. You can't really steal something that's free and it's yours. So I really like this question because I think it gives us an opportunity to challenge how we think about food resources and helping and access, and how we can center autonomy around some of those resources. It's a very great question. Thank you.
Well, can I do a follow-up real quick?
We'll go to Kira.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Go ahead. Kira, go ahead.
Please continue. I'm so sorry if I interrupted anybody.
Okay, Kira, I'll go first. Okay. So anybody can come with a truck and just empty out that fridge in the middle of the night. There's no locks. There's nothing. They could just take everything that's in there. Or is the purpose just to put in enough for one person and then wait? And if somebody sees somebody taking it, and then you go put in some more.
I mean, a little bit of both. So if somebody decided that you know, this is a fridge that I can take what I need and give what I can. And if they decided to pull up with a truck, I'm going to assume with my, you know, better judgment and assume on the caution of good intention that they're otherwise distributing that food or they're in need of a truck full of food. Otherwise, yeah, it is ideally going to be open 24/7. Right now, we are piloting the project with business hours. So once we do have that open, it will be a fully open space during 9 to 5, unlocked. Folks can come and grab what they need. And then once we come to a 24/7 model, my hope is that this is something that the community knows is always going to be replenished. The community knows it's an opportunity for them to also participate, and that it's respected as a resource that they co-own instead of something that is maybe foreign and coming into the neighborhood. I hope that answers the question.
I'll go ahead and jump in and ask a question here. So I put this in the chat, but I was learning recently about the Alaska Works carpentry classes. And I found out for one of those classes, the students are required to build a small structure, and it usually ends up being like a slightly larger, like maybe a 2-dog house type deal. And that sounds like a similar size to these community fridges. I was wondering if you've considered partnering with them to get the carpentry students to build more of the fridges, because it's something that they need to do anyway to complete the class.
That is a really great idea. I appreciate you for plugging Alaska Works, because I didn't know that they had a carpentry class. The folks that I'm working with right now are actually carpenters based out of the union. And then I guess there's like an umbrella volunteer program. So it's like Carpenters for Community. So that was our small team of folks for this time around. But I absolutely would look forward to connecting with other carpenters or other students or just people who have a skill that they want to offer to the community. That's exactly what this project is intended to be. Mutual aid is kind of this really cool stance saying that aside from just monetary donations or in-kind donations, this community is really unique, and I really truly believe that everybody has something to offer this community, especially once they are kind of like in connection and network. So the more that we can build those networks, the more that we can build that community, I think that's the more successful these projects will be. So I would love to be in connection with anybody at NeighborWorks if you have any contact information. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And Art, I see that you're on there and ready to go. Are you ready to start sharing your screen?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry for jumping the gun earlier.
No, oh no, we've been just like mixing it up a little bit.
All right, good deal. And so I will get this up as large as I can and make sure that it's viewable by everybody. And does the green words on the top of a slide, AgrAbility assisting agricultural, show up for everybody there?
Looks good, Art. Looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. So I'm with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, the Institute of Natural Agriculture, Natural Resources and Extension, and I'm an energy specialist. So I end up doing quite a bit of work around healthy homes, modifications as people try to age in place by universal design, building root cellars, things like that on the housing end. And then on the other end of things with the energy, do a fair amount of work on remote energy, whether it's for a couple months out of the year at fish camp where you don't have power poles, or gold miners usage, possibly just people who, after seeing all of the kind of emergencies, want to go ahead and have a redundant power system as backup just in case, such as we had in Palmer, where people might be several days without electricity and they want to save their pipes or want to go ahead and make sure that their food doesn't go bad in the freezer or fridge. I ended up jumping in 4 years ago with Shanna York, who's at the Anchorage office, with the AgrAbility grant out of the USDA. We went ahead and put in for it, and we ended up getting it for 4 years. we're hoping that we'll be able to, on this next round, secure it again. And it's money that's given out to about half the states in the nation, where there can be a center through the land-grant university for folks who are disabled. And we'll get into definitions here in just a moment. So AgrAbility program being a national work through the USDA, cultivating extension services, assists agriculture workers in adapting to their disabilities. And the vision is simply to enhance the quality of life of farmers, ranchers, fishers, aquaculture, and lumber workers with disabilities. Why such a wide range? Because each of those professions fits within the USDA's definition of what agriculture is. So through education and assistance, we help to eliminate or minimize obstacles of people who maybe were growing at one time and received an injury in the agriculture work, somebody who is just aging and naturally has limitations that are growing for them, or somebody who maybe is coming back from war or is maybe a lifelong been in a wheelchair and they have never been an agriculture worker, but they want to start their own farm. So there's no real discrimination as to how an injury occurred, and no discrimination as to who we help. It's self-identified. In other words, you don't have to go and have a note from a doctor or go through a point system through the VA in order to access services. So helping farmers with disabilities, we try to help with technical assistance to find places where they can get capital, if possible, through agencies maybe that they're not familiar with in the agricultural sector, or even possibly through pointing them towards various grants that might be available and making them aware of things that we might find out about that they may not know through USDA or other service centers. Helping them with meaningful employment, a desire to provide for themselves, and just as with everybody else, to be financially secure. And so there are people who we serve who experience something like arthritis that might seem fairly nominal, but when you can't work your fingers possibly very well, or you can't bend down to pick up tools, it can be an impediment certainly to operating machinery, or even planting seeds. Back impairment, deafness, hearing impairment, mental and behavioral health difficulties, respiratory diseases, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment. So you might imagine that there are a number of professions that we tap into and try to either do referrals to, occupational therapy, physical therapy, certainly assistive technology, and we assist as much as we can to be a conduit. Oh, excuse me. And so, you know, some of the barriers to farmers isn't just the ability to bend up and pick up a tool, or in this case, have an adaptive grip on a wrench that someone with a prosthesis can grab, but sometimes, you know, it just doesn't fit in many people's minds that you can do agriculture if you have a disability. So it might be attitude, might be some public policy, lack of finding the type of equipment that might be able to help you. And it might actually be the cost of modified equipment, or the potential that if you do ag work with your original injury, it could hasten things along with other injuries. So just as there's a wide column and continuum of disabilities also with agriculture, I mentioned actually some of the broad categories, but when you get down to it, as far as the sectors that they work or the services that they provide, you know, we have folks who we've had helped to work with agritourism, aquaculture, beekeeping, ranching, the specialty crop flowers and also strawberries. So basically, if somebody gives a Deshan a call at the Anchorage office or myself here in Fairbanks, we're going to go ahead and get things going with looking at their employment opportunities or their employment barriers, but also the quality of life, that they know that somebody is helping them out in an area that they're maybe not familiar with, and just encouraging them, or possibly with community impacts. There are also some situations where family members, maybe the spouse of the injured person, might receive assistance also. As I mentioned, you can see that there are 3 of us who just came on in 2018, and I believe all 3 of us will try again. It's roughly just over half the states in the union that actually have a state or a regional project. There's a national website out of Purdue, from University of Purdue in Indiana, that anybody can go ahead and access, that we use as kind of a resource database. And it has all sorts of trainings. It has mention of various solutions for accessibility, events that may be coming up in a regional area. And most importantly to me, it's got the toolbox, and this is a nifty deal. If you go to agrability.org/toolbox, you're going to find a plethora of various types of items that have been put up and intentionally not taken down. Now listen, it might be everything from the famous reacher grabber that you squeeze the handle on and has pincers a couple of feet away, all the way to a modified wheelchair lift to get somebody maybe who isn't able to ambulate or stand in to transfer from their wheelchair onto their John Deere tractor or a combine. I've seen ladder extensions that were built by farmers, and so the farmer can go and put it on. A vendor or an inventor might put something on, or there might be very common items that are manufactured that have been manufactured for years that help to adapt hand tools, mechanical tools, processes. And when you go here to the AgrAbility toolbox, you could easily spend a couple of days if you want to go through everything, because some of them will have video clips that show where things can be procured. Or sometimes with those things that are put up by inventors, you'll have their phone number. I called one guy because somebody was having a hard time getting into their tractor, and he had his phone number there, and actually he had his name, and I was able to get a hold of his son, and his son said, let me hand the phone to dad. So, or his mom, I think. And so they described, some of the things about the particular item that allowed him to start to be able to get up into his very high level tractor where he couldn't before. So a lot of good ideas. And even if there's things that are listed there with prices that aren't valid anymore, because sometimes somebody invents something that works for them, they go ahead and are told and encouraged by the families and friend manufacture it. They'll do one run of fabrication or manufacturing. They'll find maybe that there's not the distribution system in retail, or that this isn't what they were going to do. At least it often leaves photographs and videos that you could take that idea to a fabricator if you needed this particular product and couldn't find it used on Amazon or eBay or whatever the case is. So very nifty tool, the toolbox. We have the largest per capita presence in the US of Alaskan vets. And so we will be working, we have worked with and want to work more with, let me put it that way, vets who return to Alaska and want to be in farming but might have a limitation. Also, there are sources from other nonprofits that give us information to be helpful in AgrAbility, such as the Arthritis Foundation. And we helped to do a agricultural worksite assessment. It's been very difficult with COVID, but where we've been able to, we try to meet the person either online or at their actual work area in person. And with in the past with the OT occupational therapist, figure out new ways of doing things. We've worked with ATLA quite a bit, which is the one-stop shop in Alaska and Anchorage for assistive technology. And you can tell that they deal with a lot of low, no tech, but you know, there are some things, even though it may be fewer, that need to be dealt with at the high tech. And it might be things that are as easy as listening devices or possibly magnifiers to read things better, maybe for pesticide application, or maybe even manuals, you know, to their equipment. And Minshu is a fellow who is a fantastic professor at the university with soils. If you don't know him, we'll be speaking tomorrow on biochar. And there he is next to his biochar poster. But he also took with, when I had to go with family during the Circumpolar Agricultural Conference in Finland, he was able to take a poster about AgrAbility and let people know from different Arctic nations who were there to talk about agriculture, what AgrAbility is about as a unique program here in the States. So that's what I have to share. If anyone wants to contact myself or our partner in assisted technology or Deshana, there's our contact information. And I thank you for giving us the time to go ahead and route things through. And we hope to see you tomorrow at the biochar presentation, if it's of interest to you.
Well, thanks again, Art. So much great information. We're going to go ahead and
Thank
I
you.
think we're going to need to move on to our next lightning
Appreciate
round.
it.
Thank you, Art. Are you able to share your screen?
You're talking to Pete, right?
Yes, Pete from the World Wildlife Fund. We're happy to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you. Can you see my screen? Okay, is the presentation coming through?
Yes, looking good.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much. Again, my name is Pete Pearson. I work for the World Wildlife Fund based in Washington, DC, is where our office is at. And so what I'm going to talk today is about our food and agriculture program that we have at World Wildlife Fund, and then talk about one specific part of it that I lead and manage globally for us, which is around food loss and waste. I think most know who World Wildlife Fund is, but in case you don't, you know, we're the largest conservation organization in the world. We're a global science-based organization. We work with companies and communities in about 80 different country offices, and we represent about 100 countries globally. And our mission, you know, is to meet the needs of humans and nature, to see that we have nature in the future, and that habitats and the natural world have a sustainable future. Our goal is, quite frankly, to give a voice to the animals and to the biodiversity that doesn't have a human voice. So I work in a pretty unique unit. We focus on this issue right here, food loss and waste. So not only in the global context, we did a report last year where it's estimated about 40% of all the food we produce in the world is lost or wasted, right? We have a tremendous issue even in the United States. So the United States, it's estimated that about 80.6 million tons of food waste is wasted every single year. Now, why this is so important is because when we look at the amount of food that's lost and wasted globally, we look at agriculture, and agriculture ends up being the #1 driver of biodiversity loss. About 70% of the biodiversity loss that we see on the planet is due to an expanding food production, expanding agriculture. And it starts to make sense when you think about what you need for agriculture, it's land. And what typically is sacrificed is wildlife habitat, whether that is a forest in Brazil or grasslands in the northern Great Plains of the United States. And so what we're trying to do as a program, as an agriculture program, is to reduce or completely eliminate the conversion of landscapes to agriculture. And once we start to do that, one of the imperatives will be that we have to reduce food loss and waste. We have to, that'll be part of this kind of one planet view, right? So, you know, you take a look at what the planet does in terms of rejuvenating its resources, whether that's soil resources, water resources, right? Agriculture is one of the biggest consumers of those planetary resources. And about the 1970s, we started consuming more than the planet's able to regenerate. We're on an unsustainable path today. The trajectory is going in the wrong direction. And so reducing the food loss and waste is one of the things that we try to focus on, in addition to, you know, better genetics of plants, better productivity, the reduction of pesticides, herbicides, increased efficiency of fertilizers, right? All of these things help us to get more to that one planet limit. All right. I mean, I could go into a lot of detail with all the math and all the science, but I wanted to let this group know about one program in particular that I think might be of interest. We, as a food and agriculture program and my food loss and waste team, we work around 5, what we call verticals, or 5 areas. We've worked very closely with the hospitality and tourism industry, very closely with any kind of food service, restaurants, National Restaurant Association, global restaurant associations. We work very in depth with retail grocery chains and the retail grocery industry. We've done a lot of work looking at loss on farms and the dynamics of what happens with farmers, both farmers that are growing commodity feed like corn and soybeans, but also fruit and vegetable growers, right? How do we make that system more efficient? But I think a real fun area is the work that we do on building curriculums for schools and for student and youth engagement. You know, I have a daughter who's 15, I have a son who's 12, and I'm really passionate that one of the things that we should be doing more of is just educating the youth and students about the importance of the food system, right? It's effectively saying, let's use the cafeteria as a classroom. Because when you get down to it, the cafeteria and understanding food system education is going to be in really, really critical, right? This is critical for anybody to know about, and probably more so for the next generation that has to understand the constraints of the planet and the limits of what we're doing in terms of agriculture. So about 4 years ago, we created something that we call our Food Waste Warrior program. This is a curriculum that students, teachers, districts can use. It's a turnkey curriculum that you can use to start looking at the cafeteria as a classroom and to implement food waste reduction and food system education in your school. When we first started this, the idea was pretty simple. It was like, hey, let's just get students in the cafeteria doing a food waste audit. Let's have them look at how much their cafeteria is wasted. And then as part of the science program, what we do is we have them do carbon and water footprinting of the food waste that they measure in the cafeteria. So it's a really good hands-on way of, getting them active, doing some measurement, doing some science work, and then directly calculating the carbon and water footprint of the food that's lost or wasted. And then the light bulb goes off. It's like, oh, well, we thought that this was just about taking it out of the trash and making sure that it didn't go into a landfill where it might harm the environment. What we're really discovering is that it's all the embedded resources that go into producing food that we waste. That is the big aha moment, right? It's the water that goes into producing that food that we wasted. It's the land that goes into producing the food we were wasted. It's the fertilizers, it's the energy, it's the human labor, right? And so it's a really great way to teach this new perspective about the food system and to get an appreciation for what goes into our food. There's an entire library of teaching resources that we have online. Just a quick Google search, WWF, Food Waste Warrior. you will see an entire library of resources you can use as a teacher or as a district. And what's really cool about it is they're broken up by grade bands, right? So you have particular activities and curriculum that is just geared towards lower elementary. Then you have another grade band where it's, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. Then there's another one that is geared more towards high school, right? 9 through 12. And each one has different activities that are more tailored towards a higher age group. One that's really exciting that we just had a couple months ago, a high school group in Maryland, they're actually putting together letters and lobbying their state government to start getting stricter rules around landfill diversion, composting, food waste recovery. And they put together about 5,000 postcards that went to their state legislature. I think it's exciting because I think once students start to understand the influence they can have and the advocacy and the voice, that the potential there, I think there's, who knows what happens when this starts to spread, right? We need to see this in every state across the country. And to be honest, we need to see this all over the world. So, I know I'm probably right short on time, probably just have a couple minutes left, but this is just one piece of our food and agriculture program and the food loss and waste program that I manage globally. But it's really exciting. It's something that any community could use, any school could use, and especially in places like Alaska, where so much of the food is imported, right? It's coming from places from all over the world. And in some respects, you're kind of like an island where you have a lot of value and a lot of things that have to be working just right to get the food that you need. To see so much of it lost or wasted is really a tragedy. And, I think that starting with the youth and getting the students excited about things like this is a really great way to go. And, if there's any questions or people want to touch base with me afterwards, I would love to see what's possible. One of the things that we do as part of the Food Waste Warrior program, we've been really lucky to partner with the Kroger Zero Hunger, Zero Waste Foundation. And what's great is they've allowed us to take a series of sub-grants. We can sub-grant funds to schools, whether it's $1,000 or a $5,000 grant. And we've been doing this more and more each year. And, I think $1,000 grant can really help a school. And so that's a potential. And again, I'm more than happy to entertain ideas and to help schools get this moving if there's interest. So with that, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Pete, for joining us. We all wish that you could talk a lot longer to this group. I go ahead, and if you have questions for Pete, are you going to be around for just a few more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I can hang out for a couple more minutes, sure.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker, Amanda Walsh. Did I say that correctly? And she's going to be talking about nutrition education in food pantries across Alaska.
Well, great. You're cutting in and out just a little bit. I believe that was my cue to start. So thank you very much.
Yes, I apologize. That's you, Amanda. Go ahead.
No problem. I would like to say, Pete, that was fantastic. Thank you. My name is Amanda Walsh, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Alaska, Anchorage. I teach in the dietetics nutrition department. So anytime I can hear about including the youth and having food systems and programs in place, especially within education, I definitely applaud that. I would love to see more of that, especially in Alaska. As you say, there's so much possibilities that we have here. So thank you for that presentation. That was fantastic. As mentioned, my name is Amanda Walsh, and I am going to talk to you just a little bit today about a project that I have been working on and working with some partners. It's just been a lot of fun. And I don't have a presentation. I put all of mine in one screen so you can see more of what I have to offer. I don't think that's sharing. Can everyone see the main presentation, or is it on a small screen? I can't tell which one is being shared. I'm going to go with the large screen that is being shared.
It looks good. You're good, Amanda.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So I first want to acknowledge a couple of partners that I have been working with It all started with the state of Alaska. We were talking about ways that we could increase nutrition education and increase healthy foods in the charitable food sector. And they had some money that was available, and we had an opportunity to work with the Food Bank of Alaska and myself at UAA and partner with some food pantries across Alaska and able to increase nutrition education and ultimately increase diet quality and some of those foods being offered to clients and some of the choices that the clients might be making. And I also had an opportunity about 5 years ago to work with one of the main food pantries here in Alaska in Anchorage. And with one of my graduate students, we set up and developed a program, and we used it off of the nudge system, where we looked at ways that we could influence client choices when they went into the pantry. And if you don't know, a nudge is just this environmental cue. So if when a client would go into the pantry, they'd see an environmental cue that would say, this product is healthier, choose this over that. And so it was a way that you can gently nudge a client to choose more of a healthy option. Now, we had plans to, we had different client handouts, we had nudges that we could put, so when the clients went shopping, we would nudge them towards different products as they were looking at the different food shelves. And unfortunately, that's when COVID hit, so we weren't able to implement the program, but we were able to completely develop that program so we can push go when the clients are out shopping again. And so because this particular program was developed, and as we worked with the state of Alaska and the Food Bank of Alaska, we realized that this was an opportunity where we would be able to reach other pantries in the state who have more of a client choice model. And so we worked with, like I said, these different entities, and we put out an application to the different food pantries across Alaska. And if you look on the slide here, you can see the recruitment flyer that we sent to the different food pantries. Because what we wanted to do is we wanted to be able to work with other pantries, the clients in those pantries, in order to help them with the nutrition education, to help them increase their diet quality by choosing these products. And so we were able to get a good number of pantries that reached back out to us, that filled out the application, that said, yes, we're interested. And so what we did is we wanted to develop some objectives. So when we went into the plan, we decided we wanted to use this nutrition education program to with a cohort of up to 10 different pantries. And we wanted to assist these different cohorts in order to implement based on their facility and based on what their clients looked like, as far as the demographics that they had, what their pantry looked like, their choice model, and help work with them individually in order to get a pantry set up. And so what we did is we created our program with our objectives. We did have, as I said, many pantries that said, yes, we are interested. And we have narrowed our topics down. So as you can see on our timeline here, we had our applications in December. Our cohort was selected in January. We did a great introductory program in February where we met together on Zoom, introduced ourselves, and learned about each other's pantries. And then what we just did just last week is we went in and we did some nutrition education training. So the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has a great guideline that's called Healthy Eating Research Nutrition Guidelines for the Charitable Food System. And so we're using this as our program model in order to determine some good healthy guidelines. So as we're working with the pantries, we'll help them to determine which foods that they have, whether they were donated or they're purchased, what we can identify as healthy foods, so that way when we implement the program, they can provide this information to their clients, and they can say, these are great choices, and this is a way that you can provide healthy options for you to take home to feed your family. And so we did a nutrition education program last week. And then now that we've had our education program, we're working one-on-one with these pantries in order to implement a nudge program or some other environmental type cue program that will fit with their pantry, and implement a nutrition education so we can tailor it to what best fits for them. And so that is our plan, working one-on-one with these pantries. And also we will be able to help them implement any policy changes that might be needed and then evaluate the program after that. And we're pretty excited about it because of the different locations that we have of people that are participating. It's not just in the bigger communities, but we definitely have some smaller communities that we're looking at, schools where pantries are located. We had some applicants and we're working with some pantries that are in those locations as well. And so we have some ideas on how to provide nutrition education, whether it's through these nudge programs. We're looking at ways to use the cooperative extensions recipes that they have in the resources. We also have other ways that we're looking to improve nutrition education based on those particular pantries. So I wanted to share what's going on there. We're pretty excited about the different pantries we're working with and being able to implement those programs there. But if you have any ideas on ways that might be culturally appropriate, or ideas that you might have to help some of these communities and pantries in ways that you could provide more nutrition education to meet more of those diverse needs, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts. I think with each community that we're working with, there are so many different opportunities that we have, but we'd love to hear more. So with that, I will conclude, but I appreciate you listening, and definitely reach out if you have any thoughts.